everybody. John Kublank here, and we have an exciting episode of Off the Cuff, all things healthcare. And every week, I lay in bed at night just waiting. Hard to go to sleep because I know on Wednesday, I get to sit beside not only the most amazing nurse and home health master you could have, but one of my very best friends, Arlene Maxim. How are you doing?
Thank you, John. I forgot to warn you about that introduction, Laura. How are you, John? How are you doing?
I'm great. And just fun fact, I'm always talking nice about you. I was like, what can I tell the audience about me? Little fun fact, I was voted most school spirit. Can you believe that?
Yay. I can believe that.
Yeah. So, but enough about me. Arlene, we have an amazing guest. Can you please introduce who we're talking
to? We do. I'm going to introduce to you my friend and colleague, Laura Barnett from Access. As all of you know, one of our Off the Cuff series, one of our podcasts a month is dedicated to Access and learning more about Access and what Access does as an EMR and as a technology company in general. And we are just so happy to have and honored to have Laura join us today. And Laura is Vice President of Sales at Access. And she heads up a number of different things, and she talks about a lot of different things, but leadership is one of her specialties, and I couldn't think of anybody better to bring on and talk about leadership than Laura. And we're going to talk today about how things in leadership has changed since COVID, since the pandemic existed, and any kind of challenges we have. We all know that we've got staffing challenges. That's number one pain point, continues. One of the, in Home Care 100, somebody brought up the fact that one of the issues with the staffing shortage has to do with staff safety. That has kind of thrown a wrench into everything about the lack of staff that we have right now, with the unfortunate death of actually, I guess there are a couple of nurses that have died as a result of having bad experiences in home health care in the last year. So I'm going to let Laura talk a little bit about herself and what her background is a little bit, and then we are going to get into a little talk about leadership.
Well, Laura? Thank you. Thanks, Arlene, and thanks, John. I'm delighted to be here and flattered to have the opportunity to connect with your audience and share a bit about leadership and communication, really, which is the lens through which I see that. So the Reader's Digest version of my background. I grew up and as we kind of assumed with John and the School Spirit Award, what you didn't know about me is I grew up and I was painfully shy. I would literally, my mom would wear a long skirt out and I would hide behind her skirt and I didn't want anybody to look at me. And I discovered that I wanted to get good at talking. I needed to know how to do that. I saw that other people did that and that helped them become successful in life. And I thought, that's what I need to do. And so I got into theater and I did that in high school, and I couldn't sing and I couldn't dance. And there's not a big market for single threat actors in terms of just being able to act. And so my mom very wisely said, why don't you go into television news? And because I was 16, I was like, no, obviously that's not the right career path because I'm 16 and what does my mother know? And about 3 weeks later, I thought, I think she's onto something. So I went to and graduated from the University of Missouri, go Tigers, got my journalism degree there and went and anchored the news for 8 years. And really always assumed I was going to be a television news anchor. Just that was the goal. I had accomplished it and I was just thrilled for that. And then life happens and things change and priorities change and your life changes a bit. And I moved back to the Metroplex, which is where I was raised, and had a couple of different roles in the communications and marketing sector, both public and private, professional services and whatnot. And about 6 years ago, I landed at Access. And the skill set that I brought to the table, and I think what our really brilliant CEO, John Olajide, saw was that I can help people talk better about the work they do. And I love coaching people. I love kind of helping to refine what you do and how you make it better. And at the time when I joined in 2018, the idea of healthcare technology was super exciting. And, did a number of different things at Access, and then the pandemic happened, and then it really became pivotal to communicate effectively. And so I've been delighted to sit on a number of different teams here and continue to hopefully benefit and impact the individual teams I've been on and the overall organization. And so that's what led me here today. And so I'm delighted to get to visit with you.
Awesome.
We sure do. I mean, you're probably one of those people that we all look to at Access for helping us in all kinds of different ways, and, including sales. Yeah, well, that's your main job now. But let's go ahead and talk about what you see as having changed since the pandemic. As far as leadership is concerned.
Yeah, as far as leadership's concerned, I think when we were, and I remember a couple of weeks into the pandemic, I mean, talking early April of 2020, right? When we had thought, oh, we're just going to be home till April, right? March 13th was the day everything changed, right? Mm-hmm. And we thought, okay, 2 weeks, we're going to stop the spread and then we're going to get back. Mm-hmm. And we learned pretty quickly that, I mean, within the day, things would change. You had a game plan at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by lunchtime, there was a new wrinkle thrown in, and by mid-afternoon, something else had blown up and you had a whole new problem to solve. Mm-hmm. And so, whatever the playbook had been got thrown out the window really, really quickly. And I think we had to give each other a lot of grace that things were going to be, we had to understand and know that change was going to continue happening for a couple of years, honestly. And I think that eventually, as we all know, kind of led to a fair amount of fatigue. But we whatever playbook we had very quickly went out the window. And at Access, not only did we have to build a software that was generally compliant with what CMS regulations were, but CMS was coming out every 2 weeks with new things that we needed to add in or to adjust within the software to keep compliant. And so not only did we have to educate our clients and educate the industry, but we had to continue building that software and engaging with folks to help them understand that this was going to be the best solution for them. And so I think there was a ton of awareness and grace that it's going to continue changing. And we have kind of a saying in our family, the final answer is very rarely the final answer. Things are going to change, life is going to happen, and we're just going to go with the flow, and we're going to assume best intent, hopefully, and continue to move forward in a way. I can't, you've heard the idea of, if you're offered a seat on the rocket ship, you don't ask which seat, you just get on. I think with this, we were sort of on a rocket ship after the pandemic, and we didn't know what seat we were on. We didn't know who was piloting the ship. We didn't know who was serving the drinks or loading the cargo or doing whatever. We just all needed to be there and be willing to be flexible. And I think, we've seen that a ton in healthcare, I think, where a lot of folks, need to pitch in and do what they need to do. And that really was amplified within the pandemic regarding what else do I need to do to help? How can I benefit my patients or my teammates, my colleagues, et cetera, in order to get the job done?
So I like to think that, and you said communication, right, is overly important in leadership. And I think right kind of in between or somewhere in there, and what you're really talking about is change management.
Oh, 100%.
That we really have to start to embrace that flexibility and understand that change is inevitable. And now it's so rapid that we don't even really have time to catch our breath.
No, we don't.
Let alone get upset and go, oh, but this is how we used to do it.
Right. Yeah. And that's very true. And I think a lot of people kind of learned that the hard way. That if you had a job and you were planning to retire in 2022 and you're like, all right, I'm just going to make it the last couple of years. And then everything got, topsy-turvy. You could not even catch your breath or get to the point where it's like, well, yeah, but back in 87, we did it like this. Well, I don't care what you did in 87. This is totally different. This is going to be a completely different situation. So yeah, and communicating more than you think you need to in change management is really the name of the game. We talk about internally, okay, well, I know this and I know that you know this, but they may not know, or they may not realize that they don't know. And so we have to take a step back.
Or can I even interject, and not to cut you off, but they may not have had the time to get the information, right? Sure. And that may be their fault, right? They're not organized, or they let something slip, or they had a family emergency.
Sure.
My question, how important is it in this virtual world that we allow for more time and not that instantaneous response that we would normally get one-on-one?
Oh, for sure. And it's tremendously beneficial one-on-one, because you really can tell when that light bulb has gone on for someone, right? When that moment of learning, understanding, recognition has occurred. Fortunately, with technology like this, I can see the both of you, and I can watch, and okay, you're listening, you're focusing, oh, and you got it. But seeing that face and understanding that nonverbal element of communication is so crucial to be able to grasp that. I've gotten to present with one of the members of our professional services team, Christina Andrews, and she and I co-present on communication as an effective leadership skill. And we talk about the fact that human attention spans are now shorter than the attention spans of goldfish. And you think about, here I am on my computer, and I had to shut down my work email. I had to shut down my personal email. I had to shut down Teams. I've got my cell phone here. I've got my watch that's going to beep and buzz and do whatever. We all have all of these devices and things that are grasping for our attention all of the time. And so we ourselves, we know that we're contending with all of this, but our audience is contending with all of that as well. And so I always talk about this within our team, and I appreciate Arlene saying we look to you for communications help, because I always talk about the concept of good words versus bad words. And good words are words that you want heard, believed, remembered, and passed on about you. And bad words are not just words that get you an R rating in a movie, but they're words that you don't want heard, believed, remembered, and passed on. So when the surveyor comes, we don't really like to talk about deficiencies, do we? That's not really a highlight. That's not a sandbox you want to play in, right? And we know that to be the case. And so because our attention spans are shorter, because we have slivers of attention in different areas, we have to be so mindful and thoughtful about our word choices, because if someone picks up one little thing, we want it to be the right thing. And we also know, and I think this was tremendously noticeable within the pandemic, was that people don't live in silos, or they don't want to live in silos. I remember, I think it was August of 2020, I want to say, that we went to our first event, and it may have even been 2021. It kind of all was a blur. We went to our first event after the pandemic had really tamped everything down for a while. And I literally remember walking up to people at competing software organizations. And usually I'm up against them getting deals, and I don't really want to see them because they're not on my team. And I was so elated to see these people. It was like, you have legs. We were so used to seeing people in little boxes like this, right? And it was like, it was so good to connect with someone. And we know that whatever message you have, you're going to go share with somebody. We talk about this at conferences. If you send a team to a conference, like, if you've got a team registered to come to Agile in April, and you've got 4 people coming, it's very unlikely that all 4 of you are going to go to the exact same sessions every single time. We've got dozens of continuing education hours. You're going to want to divide and conquer. And at lunch, you're probably going to go back and huddle up and say, I went to this session, I went to this session, I learned that, I learned this. And it's because we don't exist in silos. We want to share with one another. We need to continue that message. And so I talk about the idea of communicating with influence. So when you go and skip a rock, you're not just plunking a rock in and it goes in the water and that's the end of it. You want to skip it so it goes out further and further and has a broader impact. So when you are communicating, you know strategically that the message you share is going to be carried forward by your audience. And so it's not just, okay, the 10 people in this boardroom that I'm talking to, they're going to go tell whomever, and those folks are going to go tell whomever. And so therefore your word choice has to be incredibly strategic because the retention span is so short that we want them to carry forth the exact message that you say. And humans are really good at parroting language. If you watch cable news and watch when the end of the question, when a reporter asks a question and the person they interview is going to come back and repeat that language right at the beginning of the question. You're not going to be able to unsee it or unhear it now that I've told you it happens. So we carry that language forward. And so that has been drilled into me since my college days, since I worked with an organization that was really thoughtful about doing this with companies and teaching them how to talk to their employees, how to talk to the media, how to talk to their shareholders and effectively communicate. And so that's what I brought to Access, was the idea of whether we're communicating from a sales perspective, whether we're communicating from a product perspective, whether it's public policy. And we're the only EMR that has our own PAC, our own political action committee, to advance the needs of the industry. We have to do so in a way that really effectively communicates whatever that message may be. I'm going to take a breath there.
With all the what we were talking about being in that box, how much or how do we make up for the lack of body language or kinesics? Are we able to, as leaders, are there strategies that we could use to really start communicating more effectively and getting to maybe harder questions like what's wrong, right? Maybe you are a remote employee across the United States with your supervisor or vice versa, and there's an issue, but they're not communicating. You can't necessarily see that their arms are crossed. You can't see that their legs are crossed. What are some techniques that we could use to help in that situation?
So you can't outperform a bad message. So the message is the crucial thing. So it's kind of like, I think everybody at the beginning of the year is always on a fitness and a weight loss journey, right? I shouldn't say everybody. Oftentimes people are. Well, you've also heard you can't out-exercise a bad diet, right? If you eat a bacon cheeseburger and cheese fries and a milkshake, and I'm going to leave because that sounds really good and I'm hungry now, you can't go to the gym and work that off.
I feel bad about my lunch today.
You can't. My bad. So you can't outperform. You can be the best performer. Politics aside, President Obama was an incredibly impactful speaker, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you agree with his policies or not, that's a different story. But as an orator, he goes down in history as one of the most powerful and impactful speakers. Yeah. If his message was terrible, he could not outperform what he had to say. Right. So it really does necessitate these tools like this when you're on camera, and you should have your camera on. There are times when you can't, safety, if you're driving or remote or whatever, but generally you do need to be able to be face to face with a colleague. I live in Dallas. I lead the sales team in the Western United States. So I have folks in California and in Las Vegas and in Arkansas. So I can't go to lunch with any of my team members on a whim, which is a real shame because I absolutely love the gals I work with. And so it's really important as a leader to be intentional about the time and intentional about those teach back moments where you don't assume that what you shared is how they interpreted it, how they learned it, because what you teach may not be what they learned. And it's a point where you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, I said this, do they think I meant that? Or just ask,
And I'm hearing also like the senior receiver, right? The receiver is not necessarily responsible always, or at least for majority of figuring out what we're trying to communicate.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah. The onus should be on the teacher to say, I'm communicating about such and such. So for instance, I have a colleague and we were going to have her record a demo for a certain prospect. And I said, I want you to lead this. I think you're going to be really great at this. I want you to drive this. This is a great opportunity for you to get some exposure in the organization. And she was like, okay, I'll set up the meeting to talk about it. And I was like, okay. And then we went a step further and she said, okay, so now are you going to record it? And I said, oh, no. I want you to own this. I thought it was clear to her that was what was happening. Because she had never done this before, it sort of hadn't occurred to her that was a possibility. And so it was on me to realize, I think I communicated it clearly, but apparently I didn't. And so that's on me to ensure that understanding has occurred. And when things are happening so fast within a home care setting or within a hospice setting, when patients are changing, conditions are changing, or a new injury has happened that affects the outcome, and you've got, medication interactions or those sorts of things that sort of change the game all of a sudden, you really have to be especially diligent about ensuring that understanding has happened and continues to happen all along the process.
What are your thoughts around open communication? I know you said good words and bad words, heard, those sort of things, but we're human, right? We often work alongside, remotely or next to these individuals longer than we see anybody else, probably, right?
Oh, yeah.
So relationships are tough and things get, some sort of conflict. Like, what is your feeling on open communication, being honest, and in conflict resolution, working through that?
That's a whole other podcast. No, but you're exactly right. And that is something that does need to be addressed. And certainly, wearing the sales hat that I do, sometimes a client or a prospect assumes that something is in the software or will occur a certain way. And maybe that's not something we've built, or maybe that's something we know isn't going to be the industry best practice that they should follow. And so, we really have gotten very diligent to say, what else are you needing? Design your perfect software. Tell me what you want that to look and feel like. We may have everything you want. Wonderful if we do. We may solicit some ideas from you that we can talk with our product team and add to our roadmap, because we really are diligent about partnering with our clients to enhance the solution in a way that benefits the most people and benefits our clients so that they can work more efficiently and streamline their operations and provide better patient care. So if you start from the beginning with that, and again, it's the kind of thing where if we start there and make the effort on the front end, those difficult conversations will likely be less difficult down the road because of the investment you put in on the front end.
And also for me, I love the saying, and I believe it's something like, instead of condemning, be curious. And that's what it sounds like you're doing. Ask questions. Look, what's your ultimate outcome? Like, I know you're frustrated. It doesn't do X, Y, and Z. Let's talk about it. Let's figure this out, instead of going, well, you're dumb and you don't really know what's best practice. Like, probably not the best choice.
Yeah. We've worked with a number of clients of all different sizes. And there was a particular organization I have in mind, and they were going to be, starting an office in a new city. And they said, we're going to do this line of service and that line of service. And we said, great. And they said, we're going to get both going at the same time. And we said, no, you're not. And we had to stick our necks out to say, no, you're going to run your business a different way than you had planned. And we said, now here's why we recommend you do this step first and then that step, because we want to protect your cash flow, because we want to grow with you for 10 years or longer, right? And so if you do this way, then more foundation and security, et cetera, et cetera. But when you do that, when you communicate that effectively and go a step further to explain the why of something, you're going to then build credibility, and they're going to trust you more, which is going to lead to likability. And so that's going to benefit the relationship all around.
I think that's a really good segue into talking, maybe, Laura, a little bit about what the challenges are for leaders like today. I mentioned at the beginning about staffing being a problem now. We've got, we've got inflation that's just out of control.
Right.
There's a lot of things going on which causes stress at every single level in every organization. And what do you see are some challenges now that are piquing the interest of the leaders and the staff that they're working with?
So I think one thing that we continue to see, and one thing that Access really works to solve for within staffing, is the idea of appropriate training. And, we have worked, our clients and the industry has worked really, really hard to attract those folks that maybe stepped away from healthcare for a while because the pandemic burned them out, understandably so. And perhaps they had at one time in their life and one time in their career had really answered that call. They stepped away, they got burned out, and perhaps now they're boomeranging back. And ensuring that their skills are fresh, or if you are attracting a new generation of talent and folks that have recently graduated college with a nursing degree and are answering the call to step into a home healthcare setting or a hospice setting, ensuring that those folks are able to provide excellent care and compassionate care. Because again, it's not just about the technical side of the medicine that's being provided. Right. It's certainly, especially within hospice, or any larger sized home health, we know that patient engagement scores directly impact what your reimbursement rates are going to be. Right. So you have to be able to be present with the family and answer questions and address concerns that they may have and interact with them in a way that they feel valued and heard and respected. And so not only you as a leader need to have those skills, but you need to equip your team with those communication skills so that they are in the home as an ambassador of your organization, which is a whole extra layer beyond, if you say that a patient doesn't have or has dyspnea, that means that they're going to have a hard time breathing. And so why is it crisscrossed? And so when you partner with an organization like Access, we've got stuff built into the software that's going to prevent that sort of problem. But it's not just about the technicalities of documenting from a medical perspective, but it is adding in additional layers of how are you interacting with people? What are those soft skills that are so needed in the workforce when you're especially dealing with your colleagues in your office, but dealing with folks in their home that are when you are receiving home health or when you are receiving hospice care, it's not the best time of your life, right? This is time when things are stressed and heightened, and it's difficult. A lot of families, many families are going to go through pre-grief. There's going to be really tense family dynamics at play. And so being able to navigate those conversations and provide care, it really requires a very specially gifted sort of person to be able to provide the medical care and then navigate those relationships and do that in a way where you're effectively communicating to the family at the same time.
Well, I think you'll agree that each one of these clinicians that are out in the home have to be leaders in themselves.
100%.
Those families, and I think they forget many times, we talk about value-based purchasing and how the HCAP scores, how that's actually a report card on the staff that is providing the care. And so the leadership quality and understanding how to lead that patient to a positive outcome is so critical. And I just think that, in the leadership within the organization, they need to educate those folks. They're not just out there doing a job and getting a technical skill taken care of and leaving. There's an endpoint to this, and you're going to be graded on that endpoint.
Right.
And in 2025, you're going to be paid on that endpoint.
Exactly.
So, so that really needs to be heightened. They need to really be aware of how to bring those leadership qualities out in folks that are going out into these homes.
And it starts with the leadership of the organization. It cannot start with frontline employees. It's got to start with that senior leadership and spread outward.
I love the saying, the fish rots at the head. And I think there's even a whole leadership workshop
Sure.
around that setting, and it is so true. As a father, I oftentimes look at my children and I get upset because they do one thing or another, and I turn around and, oh, guess what? I do that.
Right.
I do that.
It's your own darn fault, John. Yeah.
Do as I say, not as I do. Not a great leadership tactic.
Right.
I don't know. I don't hear it as often, but maybe 5-6 years ago, transformational leadership was a big buzzword.
Right.
But I feel like what we're talking about as leaders, right, or this leadership principle is that transformational leader, that it's just it's more than just task management. Long story diatribe. Thoughts on the difference between a manager and a leader?
Yeah. So a manager pushes, right? They're driving someone. They're yoked and they're pushing folks with them. A leader gets out of the way. A leader says, I'm hopefully not the smartest person in the room. Other people are here doing what they do really well. And I can cast the vision for what the organization is going to do, or the problem we're going to solve, what the world is going to look like when we've solved the problem that we're endeavoring to solve. And you guys are going to go make it happen. And you're going to do amazing things along the way. And I think that may have been, and I'm incredibly grateful for the experience I've had at Access, because I didn't know a thing about home health when I came here. And I often tell the story that when I was in onboarding, they kept talking about water in a desert. And I was really confused about why we keep talking about an oasis. And this doesn't make any sense at all. And then I learned that OASIS was an acronym, like everything else in healthcare.
Yes,
right?
It is.
And so that leads me to the point that, if you are bringing in folks who don't have an established background in this and are learning this, or let's say you're doing some community engagement. Let's say your marketer is out doing community engagement. If you are utilizing jargon in your terminology, that learning is just going to go right over their head, and they're going to shut down, and they're not going to listen, and they're not going to pay attention. And that opportunity is lost, which is really unfortunate. So when I talked earlier about good words and bad words, jargon is in that bad word category, because like when I said, kept hearing about an oasis, I didn't hear anything else that they were trying to teach me, because I was trying to figure out about water in a desert. What's going on? And I like to consider myself a smart person, and I was completely lost.
That probably makes it even worse to some degree, because you're like, I know I'm smart and I don't understand.
This can't be it, but I don't know what it could be. Yeah. And so there is, like I said, there's the assumption of learning. I know what this means, so obviously everybody else in the room should know what this means. Very rarely the case.
It drives me up the wall. Like it's a critical pet peeve in my business life, how little training, orientation, or engagement around learning organizations prioritize. And I always go back, excuse me, I played sports in high school, and it was very taxing, a lot of effort, a lot of commitment, but nothing like a professional athlete, right? Sure. And go Spurs, go Wimbiana, my favorite right now, like most of the country. He practices like 97% of his time. Sure. Like 3%, 5% he's on the court. The rest of his time he is practicing. And he is what we look at as the pinnacle of professional something, right? Whether it be a sport. But yet we do less than 3% of training, depending on how long you work with the organization, in your whole career, potentially. Right. How much does that really affect your long-term indirect costs of retraining, right, or downward problems, and I think retention?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So we know that it costs tens of thousands of dollars to fill the need when a nurse leaves. It can be their salary plus 50%, right? And so you can very easily spend well over $100,000 to find someone new. And in many cases with hospital systems, which we're competing against, they're going to be offering sign-on bonuses that are as much as a nice car.
Oh,
right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the margins where they are within home health care and within hospice care, we can't make those dollar signs just appear, right? And so competing against that is tremendously important. And the way that we do that is ensuring that they are comfortable and confident. And when you have an organization that's going to pour into you and invest in you and get you set up, and then, partner with an organization where, you're learning a new software, yes, we're going to go teach you that software in implementation, but we also have our training and certification platform. So we have a whole other learning tool that's going to give you industry knowledge. It's going to give you solution knowledge. It's going to do that for every single service line. It's going to do that for whatever role you may have in an organization. There's always going to be a resource for you all along the way to enhance your learning and help you do your job better. And then you can expand into new areas. If okay, we're in a hospice now, but we're going to add a palliative, go ahead and learn those palliative models so that you can then be a leader within your own organization and say, well, hey, I already did these courses, so I have an understanding of how and why this is different and better, and why this is going to be something that why we're delving into that line of service. So when you have an organization that's going to give you those tools and setting you up for success, we're helping you to be successful down the road, and therefore helping your organization be successful, because you're going to stay, you're going to be happy, you're going to leverage something like Access Care, and you're going to be able to go out and do your own home health visits on the weekend when you want to earn a little bit of extra money. And you've got clinicians who are earning 6 figures on top of their salary because they're leveraging a tool like Access Care and picking up extra visits. And then those visits get filled and you're avoiding LUPAs. So it really is as much of a win-win as a situation could be.
Sorry, Arlene, I feel like I'm hogging the whole conversation.
No, you're fine. You're fine. You're asking great.
No, I love the questions. Tell us a little bit about what you see the key skill a leader can learn as far as skill levels of a leader. What are your recommendations?
Well, if you hadn't guessed, it's going to be communication. And that's not a big shock. But what I really love about it is communication is something you can never be perfect at. Right? You can get whatever the perfect score is on the SAT, and I think it's changed a bit. So I don't know that 1600 is perfect anymore, but you can get a perfect score on the SAT or the ACT or whatever it may be. You can never be a perfect communicator. You can always say, I want to be at 100%. And if you get to 99.4, that's amazing. But you can never achieve perfection. But that means that you continually strive to be better. And because we didn't know how the pandemic was going to play out, you could walk in and you could have been an amazing communicator in February of 2020, and the pandemic threw everybody for a loop. And so when you have situations like that will test you, and we've had, other situations like that have tested us. We got all ready for PDGM. And then as soon as the pandemic hit, PDGM was 8 weeks ago. I'm done with that. That's way in the rearview mirror, right? And so everything changed as a result. But really, that is something that you as a leader in your organization, whether your business card says it or not, is something you need to have in order to get to a leadership role or stay in a leadership role. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that it will benefit the organization, it will benefit you within your organization, and it will benefit you moving up the ladder all along the way.
That's excellent. I love that.
Simon Sinek is an author, public speaker, one of my favorites. He writes a book called Leaders Eat Last. I highly recommend anybody pick it up. I believe that selflessness and empathy are huge traits of a successful, or maybe even abnormally successful leader, because I think you can pound people or drive people or inspire people in a lot of different ways. But there's something about that selfless leader, that empathetic leader, the one that gets their hands dirty or is ready to jump in and help. How much of that is also important to show and not get so wrapped up in day to day that you're forgetting to, show your employees, your team, that you're also leading this thing.
Yeah, we had a situation on our team, on the Access team recently, and a colleague had reached out to a couple of their team members and said, there's been a medical emergency in my family and I need to step away for a couple of hours and, take the rest of the day and kind of assess. And literally within like 45 seconds, the leader of that team said, okay, I know you have this coming up, and delegated it out and said, okay, I'm going to step in and go do this. You, other person on the group text, I want you to step in and do that. You, initial person with the concern, take a step back. Go, thank you for letting me know, but think nothing else of work for the rest of the day. Update us when you can. We're thinking about you and your family. We will handle it. We got it. We got your back. And in order to have a team that is going to run successfully and where the wheels keep turning, you have to have people who are willing to pause what's going on, attend to the immediate, and pick up the slack where it needs to be picked up. And that's the only, in my opinion, and in my experience, that's been the only effective way to keep your people close to you, and keep them where you want them to be so that they're going to stay with you a long time. This team member is an extremely valuable member of the team. They need to be happy and fulfilled and feel listened to and respected. And this is the only appropriate way to deal with them, is as a human being. Things are going to pop up, and you need to adjust accordingly.
We were talking about Leaders Eat Last, which is heavily influenced in military. And before we got on the show, we were talking about Jacko. Yeah. One of the things in his book in military, they talk about having your six, which is, I got your back, right?
Right.
I believe one of the downfalls of many organizations is so many people are looking at their own back. If you're looking that way, you're not looking forward. You don't see the vision.
Right.
No safety equals no success.
Right.
How do we operate? And I think the pandemic scared a lot of people in that, employee-wise, and also opened up this weird dynamic that there was a power shift. No safety, no success.
Right.
I feel like it's much more prevalent now.
Sure. So if you were scrambling to take notes and write down, so the author that John was referring to is a guy named Jocko Willink, Willink.
Amazing.
And he's a former, I guess, or maybe you're always like a Marine. He is a Navy SEAL.
Yeah, I don't want to get cross with him. So.
No. I'm going to give him whatever accolade he would like to have.
Please.
Very accomplished military leader, thought leader in the leadership vicinity. And one of my favorite pictures from the Olympics from, I think it was 2008. So now that's 16 years ago, which is terrifying. It was Michael Phelps, and I think it was the swimmer, I want to say from France, but I could be wrong. And Michael Phelps is swimming, looking straight ahead. And the other swimmer is in the next lane. And the picture's sort of from above. And so you see Michael Phelps swimming, looking straight ahead. And you see the swimmer in the next lane, and he's looking over at Michael. And if you're too focused on what they're doing, you're not running your own race. You're not focused on what you need to be focused on.
Yeah, compete against yourself.
That moment sort of crystallized that. And I mean, Michael's going to win everything because he's Michael Phelps, right? So it wasn't whether this guy's going to overtake him. It's how much is he going to lose by. But it is that idea of where are you focused? What are you focused on? And how is that helping you achieve what you need? And the thing is, like we say, not only have, regulations gotten stricter and belts gotten tighter and budgets gotten smaller, but the landscape has gotten infinitely more competitive. We were just talking about case manager sign-on bonus of $50,000. Well, good for you. That's a car. It's really hard for a 45 patient home health to compete with that. You just don't have the margins to make that happen. And so when you are focused on your team and building them out and you yourself having those skills and equipping your team with those skills, then you are in a much better position to keep them in your organization for a longer period of time and to have greater success along the way.
Yeah. Arlene?
I'm speechless. You're on a roll. Just keep going with your
Right?
books and your comments on your books. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about social capital.
Yay, my favorite topic.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
So social capital is a thing that I didn't know had a term. And, you know, for most people, they hate to walk into a cocktail party where they know no one. You know, meeting a room full of strangers is a terrifying experience for most people. I'm the weird one that was like, oh, fantastic. Here's 57 friends I haven't met yet. And
that shy girl finally came out, eh?
The shy girl came out of my shell, right? And I love doing that. And I love being the connector of people. I love saying, oh, I know just who you need to meet. Oh, I know just somebody for that role that you have open on LinkedIn. Go follow Access on LinkedIn if you haven't already. I love the idea of being the hub in the wheel instead of the spoke. If you are the hub, then you are connecting everybody and everything. And so when you need to call in a favor, you've got a whole array of folks that you can leverage, right? And so social capital really is that concept of building a network out to benefit the people around you, but that really in the long run is going to benefit you. And you're able to leverage the strength of the friendship that you've built and call upon people, help them achieve their goals, and then they will help you achieve your goals in return. I have the great luck of hearing about a lot of job openings. And, you know, in the economy that we're in, we've seen a number of rounds of layoffs. And so every couple of weeks, I'll hear about somebody that is needing to find a new role. And I'll make a LinkedIn post and say, hey, if you're looking to up level your team in this area, reach out to me or connect with my friend so-and-so. And whether I get that person a job or not, at least there's some good karma involved, right? You're getting them out there, and they're going to remember that when someone is in their time of need. You're going to help them do that. Yeah, there was a gentleman that I know, and he said, we're looking for a hospice chaplain. I was like, well, great. I've got a couple of people that I can leverage. Now, they're not going to apply, but we can expand to their network. Yeah. And so when they know who you are and what your character is and the kind of people that you associate with, and hey, let's make this introduction. I would love a recommendation of someone to fill this role. Then you are continually building that network in a way that benefits you or benefits your organization in the long run. And that to me is really exciting, because that's when that snowball really starts to roll down the hill in a way that's really effective and efficient.
I think employee satisfaction, when we're talking about leadership and social capital, you see that, or we've heard the saying, we don't quit a company, we quit our boss, right?
Sure.
That to me says that social capital is in the negative. And I try to explain to my kids, like, we want to put in, but you got to be careful how much you take out. Uh-huh. There is a limit, and it comes with a fee that might not be what you expected it to be, because there's always hidden fees. And I think a lot of times is that we have that employee that leaves us and we are shocked because they were our all-star, because we asked them maybe to do more than what they needed to do, or some sort of situation. I don't want to assume, but I do believe strongly that we have to monitor that social capital back and forth. And if things aren't going very smoothly, it's probably not the other person. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand why everybody, if everybody is doing something, I usually have to look at myself. And I think overall, we've been talking, and I feel strongly that if you take care of your employees, especially your frontline ones, whatever business you're in will be successful, because they're going to take care of the people that are at the front.
110%.
You ain't taking care of the people at the front, you don't got a business at the back. So what's the point? Right. Yeah. So I really believe, and we're going back to safety, but social capital is also pouring into them. Right. Oh, yeah. I believe that goes back to that safety equals success, because when you're pouring into somebody, they feel value.
Right.
Well, I think Laura and I have an excellent example of John Lodgeday. I mean, I can't think of anybody else that isn't a better description of that. That, you know, I've had my own business for many, many years. I just, the last year I did not have my own business. I think it was 2018 or so. And I've worked with Access pretty much since then. And I have never experienced any type of leadership like John Lodgeday provides.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's an incredible leader. My father passed about 2 years ago, and I passed on a Saturday morning, and John called me first thing Monday morning and just wanted to hear memories of my dad, wanted to hear what happened, wanted to hear how I was doing, wanted to check in. And, you know, John is running an organization that has operations on multiple continents. And it was important to him that I had an opportunity to connect and be heard and be valued. And that was tremendously impactful. I'm going to always remember that.
Yeah.
And that was, you know, that is just when we talk about kind of those slices of time, that was just a slice of time that you're going to remember for forever and ever. Amen. You know,
in pure juxtaposition to that, but also I will remember forever. Amen. I work for an organization, no names. And I was talking to the CEO. I go, hey, Mr. CEO, thank you so much for my birthday card. You know, they didn't put any money in or whatever, but it was just a birthday card. Happy birthday, John. I hope everything's good, right? Their response was, I get a pile of them on my desk all the time, and I just sign them. I don't really know.
Sounds like a National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Super valued. So to my point on that is, and I'm so happy for y'all that y'all have John. And anytime I've been in a leader position, I really try to do the leaders eat last, you know, let's jump in, do that. Am I perfect? No. I believe there's about 1,000 leadership books to one good leader. It seems out there. Yeah. There is a need for individuals to start thinking about ways that they themselves can be these leaders for the next generation, because I don't really know if these organizations are going to be able to last if people don't want to work for them. And there's a lot of people out there, and there's a lot of reasons. You've already said, you know, reduction in, reimbursement, regulations, labor, blah, 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 this, that, other. Also, Sally has an appointment on Wednesday, and John has kids that have school off, and there's so many things. But we have to make sure that we have somebody working with us, right? And we need these people to want to work. And I guess that goes back to that transformational leader that we're getting out of their way and trusting them to do what they need to do.
Yeah.
It's very empowering.
Well, one of the things in home health and hospice that I do know is that the reason people leave, and they usually leave within the first 6 months after starting a job in home care and hospice, is because they don't understand what they're doing. They have not had proper orientation. They don't have the training. I believe that with what you were talking about, Laura, earlier with the training certification program that Access has, I mean, that's probably one of the most important things. There's no other EMR out there that I'm aware of.
And I've done those too. I've done a lot of those. I think I have 4 of those certifications. They're excellent. Yeah. I wish I would have had it 12 years ago when I got into the business.
Right. I know, but that's one of the things that make people leave. And as long as they're educated in it and they feel comfortable when they're out there doing care for patients, they're going to stay with you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Hope Hospice good comment. Something I'll never forget. First hospice job I ever had, came in as a community liaison, green, but thought I could do anything. And I was ready to get out in the field. I was ready to talk to doctors, like, slow down. You got 2 weeks of orientation. And my little ADHD self, could not wrap my head around. But I look back to those 2 weeks, literally the first 2 weeks that I ever was in this industry, as the most impactful time in my entire career. I don't know if I would be sitting here today if it wasn't for that orientation.
Right.
That a lot of people said was too much and overdone and yada, yada, yada. And it was too soft skills. And actually, I wanted to ask you that earlier. it seems like in 2024, we're finally starting to get around to accepting soft skills as a
hard
real, something that moves the measures, right?
Yeah.
It's not just accounting. It's not just the hard thing. Can you talk about those soft skills or your opinion on that, from soft skill to hard skills?
I'm thrilled that people are now realizing that soft skills,
right,
communication skills are just as valuable as, how to create pivot tables in Excel, because I can't create pivot tables in Excel. That's not my skill set. I can listen to beat the band. I can help you navigate a difficult conversation. And I think especially because we were placed remotely for so long and not given a guidebook as to how to do this, we still had to, you had to hire people remotely. You had to build them into your team remotely. And certainly in some instances, where direct patient care was being provided, yes, it was obviously face-to-face. But in other elements of healthcare, we were bringing on team member after team member during the pandemic as a growing organization, and doing so in a way that was like, great, I've met you on Teams 3 times. Here's your job offer. You start in 3 weeks or whatever it may be. And hopefully assimilating them into your culture and maintaining that culture when you have a laptop and a mouse pad. That was what you had to show for it, as opposed to, happy hour after work or pizza at lunch or, a Top Golf on the weekend kind of a thing. And so it really is, I feel like it's too late, but I feel like this was one of those things where the pandemic really forced this into being a frontline skill that folks needed to develop and or recognize that this needed to be developed, because we've got so many tools now that can do so much of a lot of jobs.
Right.
We're talking about, AI or Chat GPT, and you can just put in a prompt and it'll do whatever you need. If you need a diet plan, or you need a meal plan, or you need a workout plan, or you need to plan outfits.
I'm a Chat GPT enthusiast. You ask Arlene every day, I'm telling her something I'm doing with it.
Magic.
Yeah.
But how do you improve someone's performance? How do you get somebody to turn their camera on if you're working remotely with them? You can't get ChatGPT to do that for you. So you have to have those innate social or communication skills to say, hey, I noticed you've been kind of distant lately. Is everything okay? And you have to stop and you have to wait in the uncomfortable silence, because it is uncomfortable, and you just have to wait until they say, yeah, I've really been upset. I've really been frustrated. So-and-so said this to me 2 weeks ago. Well, why didn't you tell me? If it was 2 weeks ago, you should have told me. But you can't blame them, right? They're operating from their own perspective for their own reasons. But as a leader, you have to take the initiative to ensure that your team is comfortable and confident. And you have to take the time to do it. And that's the thing that we have the least amount of, is time, honestly, and unfortunately.
I think a lot of times the stress of being a leader, the weight, they say heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? Mm-hmm. And even if you're not a manager, but you wear that badge of leadership, you're still wearing that crown. It can be heavy. With all that stress, I believe there comes some insecurities, right?
Oh,
Just normal human insecurity. You stay up late at night. How am I doing? How am I operating? Mm-hmm. What advice do you have to leaders or inspiring leaders that can help them deal with that insecurity and trust their gut, or strategies to maybe, check in somewhere with someone to check their ideas, right?
Yeah. Well, you're kind of a step ahead of me, because I was going to say either pick a mentor or a reverse mentor. And usually, I would go to somebody like Arlene, who has been in this industry for years and years and knows everyone and everything and knows how to navigate those situations. And we have a number of those leaders on our team. And I'm so grateful for their friendship and their leadership and their wisdom. What I also love is the fact that now organizations are opening up to the idea of reverse mentors. So oftentimes, leaders, more experienced or tenured folks are paired with somebody who's been in the industry less than 5 years. And this is not just home health. This is whatever the industry may be. And it is the idea of, let's tap into a younger, fresher, newer set of eyes that has a different perspective. And what wisdom can they bring that may be conventional or unconventional that can help address problems or solve things? You know, like I mentioned, I came into Access not having any background in care in the home. And so I would ask questions like, what in the world is an oasis? Or other questions that kind of would force people to say, okay, well, maybe we could explain that better. Because if, you know, when you are navigating the care of a loved one, when you're navigating the care of a parent or a grandparent or whatever, you're not immersed in all of this. And the information is everywhere. And so when you are dealing with someone who is not either doing this professionally or works at AARP or something like that and has all this background of information, they don't know how to navigate this. They don't know to go to Medicare Care Compare and get the scores. And, you know, well, 3 stars seems good for a restaurant. So, you know, 2 3/4 stars sounds good. Well, no, it's really not the way that we look at it. So, you know, when we talk about communication, it is ensuring that you've taken a step back and you realize, oh, this is someone that we really need to dial back. And again, doesn't have anything to do with their intelligence. It's just their familiarity with the topic, because they may know, you know, everything about the Yankees that I know nothing about, and they've got their own skill set and their own background. But we have an opportunity then to evangelize this kind of care. We know that care in the home it's where people want to be cared for. It's the most convenient. It's the most comfortable. It's the most cost effective. The quality is better. We know all of that. And we have an opportunity to communicate that effectively to people that, you know, during the pandemic really got their first taste of, care in the home. Yeah, I don't want to go to the hospital. I should probably, you know, investigate this telehealth thing or learn more about getting care in my home where it's a lot smarter and better.
Sorry, didn't mean to do that.
You're good. A little sneak peek of Jocko Willink for all you folks.
I want to save that for the end, but we're getting to the top of the hour. We so appreciate all of your time.
Delighted to join in today. Thank you.
It was
before we stop, John, Laura, are we going to have any leadership? I'm asking because I really didn't look at the entire agenda. Agile. Are we going to have some leadership courses at Agile?
I'm sure we will. And I'm so glad you asked. I can't put my fingers on it at the moment, but I know that is the case. And what I love is not only just leadership specific, but hearing general leaders in a broad array of areas. So yes, there will be leadership development, but you're going to be hearing from leaders generally within our industry, whether it's someone who's got a significant background in home health like Tammy Ross, or hospice employee number 1, Zandra Ellis, folks who have been devoting their career to the development and the enhancement of this industry. And so you're going to be able to tap into their wisdom and knowledge coming up at Agile in April, right here in Dallas.
Yeah.
And they were here on our podcast Off the Cuff. But as we said, when you got that one-on-one in person,
it's
better communication.
Tremendously impactful. Yeah.
And so if Tammy and Zandra are as impressive as they are to me virtually,
right,
in times in person.
Yeah. Don't wear socks; they'll be knocked off. Yeah, say about that.
Just before we go, I every time I talk about Jocko, I always am reminded, and I'm going to throw it out there for everybody. I'm not going to play it, but I just want to show it. If you get a chance, go watch this video called Good.
Okay.
It's 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Honestly, do y'all mind? Can we watch it? Would y'all
mind?
2 minutes?
I haven't seen it, so I'm excited to see it.
All right. I watch this video anytime I need. Oh, got it. Jocko is
one of my direct subordinates, one of my guys that worked for me. He would call me up or pull me aside with some major problem, some issue that was going on, and he'd say, "Boss, we got this and that and the other thing." And I'd look at him and I'd say, "Good." And finally one day he was telling me about some issue that he was having, some problem, and he said, "I already know what you're going to say." I said, "Well, what am I going to say?" He said, "You're going to say good." He said, "That's what you always say. When something is wrong and going bad, you always just look at me and say good." And I said, well, yeah, when things are going bad, there's going to be some good that's going to come from it. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we wanted? Good. Didn't get promoted? Good. More time to get better. Oh, mission got canceled? Good. We can focus on another one. Didn't get funded. Didn't get the job you wanted. Got injured. Sprained my ankle. Got tapped out? Good. Got beat? Good. You learned. Unexpected problems? Good. We have the opportunity to figure out a solution. That's it. When things are going bad, don't get all bummed out. Don't get startled. Don't get frustrated. If you can say the word good, guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, well, then hell, you still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack.
That's awesome. I haven't seen
Love
that before.
Jacko.
Yeah, he's great.
I get you pumped. Woo!
What I love about that, so when his teammate said, I know what you're going to say, what that says to me is Jocko is consistent in his communication.
Yeah.
You cannot say one thing one day and another thing another day and expect that your team is going to understand it.
Mm.
He already knew going in, I know he's going to say good, and I got to figure out why, and I got to figure out how to solve this. Great. Wonderful. You've got somebody, when you talk about, you got your 6, Jocko has your 6. We know that. You have a consistency of someone that you can count on. They're going to do that through their actions, and they're going to do that through their words. And you are beginning to build trust through your words. You have to do that when you begin to get to know somebody, and then you go through some stuff, and then they're going to see it by your actions later on.
Amazing. Laura, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on the show today. Arlene, it's always an honor to be in your presence. Virtually.
An honor to
or
be
in
with you
person.
too.
Well, and everybody, thank y'all so much for watching this either live or whenever you have
Later
the
on.
opportunity to watch it. We did go a little bit later, and so we're hoping that maybe the time difference, we have some different people. But as always, we need you to smash that subscribe button, hit that like button, share it with your friends, your family. I'm sure your grandmother would love it.
Yep.
And as a final note, to all those leaders out there, let us be curious,
Not judgmental.
condemning. Until next week, I'm John Kublank, Most School Spirit, Arlene Maxim.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.